Good morning, everybody. This is Van Hargis with Van Hargis Horsemanship, and this is the ranch road. We're going to take a little trip over the ranch here and get some started with some horses. Crank up the old truck here and get the AC on. May not need the AC quite as much today because we're having a South Texas cold front. It's only going to get up to 92 today. At least that's what they claim. It was a very, very nice morning, and they're claiming the high today is only going to be 92. And when you're in South Texas in August and you get a 92-day weather, then by golly, we're experiencing a cold front. Before I get started with the horsemanship stuff this morning over there, headed to the ranch, I want to give a big old shout out to probably the most important person in my life, Miss Melanie Marie Hargis. She's my wife, and she's the go-getter of the outfit. I might be the one that does a lot of the work with the horses and does all the physical stuff over there, but she is the one behind the scenes here. She's our everything from our errand runner to the person that takes the bills and the calls, and if anybody's ever had a horse business and a speaking business like what we do, you can only imagine how busy that is. So she's the one that's really, really busy, and my hat's off to my wife. Happy birthday, Miss Melanie. I hope it's a great day, and I owe you supper this evening, and hopefully a lot more. But tell you what, we're gonna continue on our discussion on contact. We mentioned that there is three major parts of contact, and of course that's our seat, which I think personally is our most important, because our seat helps us establish the rhythm. Our hands and our legs or our feet, that supports our rhythm. It supports our seat. So we start with our seat and we work our way up from there. But I already had some questions regarding hands and our contact on the bit, and I want to touch on that just in this particular section or this session, because in my opinion, that's probably the most used and abused area of horsemanship, and that's the overuse of a bit and a bridle. And honestly, I don't give a flying flip if that's English or Western. I see way too many people getting way too dependent on their bridle reins and on their bits. And in fact, probably the number one question that I get on most stuff is, what bit do I use? They want to know what bit I use to get a better stop. What bit do I use to get my horse to rein better and to neck rein better and whatever. And I hate to tell people, but man, there's no such thing as a bit that does those things. You see, it comes from your seat is where it starts. In other words, we establish a rhythm, we either speed the rhythm up or we slow the rhythm down or we stop the rhythm. Those are our first things. So your bit totally becomes secondary. Your bit becomes absolutely secondary. So when people ask me what bit to use, I don't know, which one do you want to use? It's only as good as your hands, it's only as good as your timing. Now, granted, there's certain situations where horses may feel better in a certain bit, or you may think that it feels better to you. But the reality is, the contact on the bit isn't nearly as important as people think that it is. But what we're going to talk about today, though, is the primary differences between the English versus Western. So many people think that one is right and the other one is wrong, and vice versa, and that, again, couldn't be further from the truth. There is a traditional style difference and a cultural difference with those. But the terminology for on the bit is the exact same. We want our horses on the bit, because how else can you guide them outside of just your posture in your seat? And how could you guide them without your posture and your feet? But so the bit does help tremendously in helping us guide our horses and help us regulate what our seat reinforces, or what our seat introduces, but our hands and our feet reinforce it. But on the bit means that we're riding a horse and pushing them toward the bridle. And the difference between English versus Western is, quite frankly, the amount of pressure that we have on the bit. We tend to have our Western horses trained to be what some people would view as behind the bit or behind the bridle, because it looks like we're riding them on such a loose rein, and we are. We're riding them on a loose rein. But here's one thing I want to emphasize. If we're riding a horse on the bridle and we're riding a horse on a loose rein, but let's just say our bridle is, the typical Western bridle out there outside of snaffles, but the typical Western bridle with a shank on it, then we have to realize then that shank actually is part of the contact. Because if the horse is responding to what I refer to as the weight on the rein, then it doesn't take much movement at all in that weight and much change at all in that weight of the rein before the horse can feel it in the bit. Why? Because the leverage of that bit exaggerates and emphasizes more movement. Therefore, if a horse is trained to be really, really light in the face, which hopefully they are if we've done our job right, then when you barely move those reins, that's reinforcing a signal. So our contact on a Western bit oftentimes is pretty much the same, but yet it has the visual difference than what it does on the English bit. Now, granted, we also in Western riding on our more advanced horses, say 5 years old and older, if you're in the show world, we ride one-handed, but we ride them one-handed in a bridle. In other words, it's got a shank and a curb chain on it. So that is slightly different as well, meaning that we're teaching the horse not to neck. I mean, the common term is neck reining. Honestly, I've gotten nowadays where I hate the term neck reining. There's no such thing. You can't push that horse's neck anywhere. What we do is we teach the horse to respond to the weight of that rein against his neck and to chase and follow the slack rein. Okay, so there's a whole different feel there again. But if you watch your really better dressage horses, the only reason I'm saying dressage is because they tend to be trained to be a lot lighter and a lot more responsive. And thank goodness I've had the privilege of riding some that were just phenomenal, some Grand Prix horses that I just thought were just absolutely amazing. But I mean, they are so light. When that left rein comes off, that horse feels that, and they move that direction immediately. So the contact on the bit may have a visual appearance of being a little bit different, but the basic fundamental aspect of the contact on the bit is virtually the same. And I tell you, we've already used up a bunch of time this morning, and I hate to sound like we're rushing, but this is a topic that's probably one of my favorite. I love talking about the contact with with all three, our hands, our seat, and our feet. So we are going to cover a little bit more tomorrow about our legs. But that's about as much as I can cover today. But if you guys have any questions, be sure and run those at us. And again, you can reach us at info@vanhargis.com. You can try the Facebook thing with me. Of course, we real appreciate that. It's just a little bit more difficult for me to respond back in a better way there. But we can respond back fairly in detail on info@vanhargis.com if you have further questions about this contact stuff. Thank you guys for joining me today on the Ranch Road. And until next time, this is Van Hargis with Van Hargis Horsemanship.